Afternoon. Thanks, ladies, for joining us
Sure.
for our next conversation, Academy Business Conversations. Today we're really looking at this whole quiet quitting. I've been seeing the term online. What does it mean? Is it a North American thing? Does it happen here? What is quiet quitting?
Yeah.
Joanne?
So quiet quitting, I have to tell you, has been happening in Trinidad and Tobago for some time
Yeah.
now, Keith.
Really?
For some time now. As a matter of fact, if you look back at our culture is renowned for not working. We find ways to escape work, right? We make songs about not working.
Right.
So unfortunately, quiet quitting really is part of our cultural and work dynamic. I think this whole understanding of what it can be at this point in time has really come about because of the pandemic and this whole new awareness of, what is our work-life balance like and what can we do to achieve that?
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, and Lara, I don't know if you
No,
you
I agree. So the concept is that you're at work, but you're not really at work,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So I'm doing my work, bare minimum, 8 to 4, picking up my paycheck, but I'm not engaged. I'm not committed to the vision of the firm. I don't have any sense of purpose in my work. So just for your viewers to clarify, the term really, as Joanne said, came out of after COVID, where many of us were able to work at home and now being asked to go back into the workplace, we're like, hang on, now I am demanding more balance in
Right.
my life.
Yes.
I want to be able to have time for my family, my hobbies, my health, whatever it might be. And so as a result, if firms aren't giving them that,
Yes.
there's a sort of quiet rebellion where now I'm withdrawing my services.
Got it.
And sort of saying, I'm here, I came in at 8, I'm leaving at 4, but I'm really not going to go above and beyond for the firm. But as Joanne said, that's Trini's effect.
That
is our public
that's been a
service.
big part of our
It's been
culture.
a big part of our
it
culture.
has been for
It
some time now.
And it's like when somebody say, well, I check out. They mentally checked out. They're
Yeah.
there, but they're not there. They're occupying a seat, a
Yeah.
space, but not necessarily adding to the organization, not necessarily adhering to the core values or living the core values.
Yeah.
And all these fancy terms. So just to use the local expression, when somebody checked out, that's when they're quiet
Quietly
quit.
quitting.
So like,
Yeah.
I'm wondering now, so from like an organizational perspective, do organizations here necessarily recognize it as a thing, or have we just come to accept that this is just part of who we are? B, is there a path or a way forward to fix it or help address it?
So I would absolutely say that there are organizations that recognize that this is an issue and have actively taken steps to address it. I mean, there are lots of organizations that actively pursue wellness programs, engage their employees in their communication programs, and do what they can to make sure that they're getting the best in terms of implementing systems and structures to do that.
Right.
But the truth is, by and large, a lot of Trinidad and Tobago and the Greater Caribbean needs to get on board in a real sense with best practices and HR programs and systems that really are behind what will equip the workforce and equip the organizations to have better management of employees and to have engaged employees.
And I think a lot of it speaks to, though, your philosophy of work as an individual. So, Joanne and I both come from the private sector where the culture is you always go above and beyond and you do your best. Yes, it's the right thing for the organization, but it's also good for you,
like a personal
for your
ethos.
career development, right? So when the company's looking around to promote somebody or give somebody a project, it's you because you've always been the one that said, hey, I'm available, let me. But we don't have that as a culture. The philosophy is I'm going to go in, I'm going to work 8 to 4, get my paycheck and go home. My real energy is going to be my family, my church, my community, whatever it might be, my sport. And I think we have to change that in our organizations. HR, of course, plays a big role with that. But there's also a personal commitment to go above and beyond because it's good for you for your career down the road, right? So, yes, the boss might be driving the Mercedes and you stuck in a Maxi, but you too could drive a Mercedes one day if you put that effort in. I think that's part of the problem, is that sort of psyche, one component.
I agree with you totally. It is part of the psyche. And I think, by and large, Trinidadians, Tobagonians, our Greater Caribbean partners, we haven't really done the work of looking inside and really discovering what is our best self and discovering what is my purpose. And I think the reason why, Lara and I do what we do is because we really enjoy it. And that comes through, so that there's purpose and energy behind what we do. And a lot of people don't really take the time to connect with their purpose. And you'd find that organizations that facilitate that process, that bring that out in people and connect them with what they do, their purpose with what they're doing, they're going to get a tremendous amount of energy and passion from their workforce.
But what often happens, is you see, and I've had this experience through a couple of the state boards that I've been on, when we bring, for example, we have scholarship winners.
Yes.
So we have all these amazing young people who we send abroad on scholarships, who come back with that vision and purpose and fire to, change Trinidad and Tobago. And they spend a year in the ministry and their soul is sucked dry because everything they suggest gets shot down. Nothing gets, activated because of the politics and the bureaucracy and all the other things. So we sort of, in some cases, actively kill that spirit, which is why, of course, so many young people now are going out on their own.
Yeah.
Because that's a place where you truly can live your joy and find your purpose and be, who you really want to be. So I think that you're right, Joel, and in workplaces, we have to try and create that space as best we can, depending on what our business is, but also reward those who go above and beyond.
Yes.
Find that 10%, which typically are the top performers, and recruit against that. So that's your benchmark for recruitment, but reward them and promote them and give them opportunities so that they then they bring others with them, give them the tools, the techniques. So there's a lot more we can do because I don't think people, even necessarily consciously, they're not being destructive consciously, they're just apathetic. It's just I don't really care about
I think it's a spillover, if we're honest, it's a spillover from just life in the Caribbean, really. There's a lot that I suppose we deal with and we may take for granted, but I really firmly believe in the power of being able to tap into that wellness that you have, that well of passion and energy that could be a really great force. Sometimes it comes out in great expressions. I know Carnival is going to come up as the first thing that's coming to mind, but we have the capacity for great things. And it really does require us to look inside, draw and dig deep and bring it out. And it's easy when you have an organization that is facilitating that.
That's right.
And for those organizations that are prepared to do it, they see the benefits. But it does require an organization making some investment in their people.
But I think also a lot of leaders in organizations, especially if you think about like being a PS in a ministry, let's say, or the head of WASA or some of these huge firms, you are literally just putting out fires every day. So you barely have time
to really
engage your employees and say, okay, what motivates you and what drives you, which is part of what HR is supposed to be doing, but it does start at the top.
And then
leaders have to believe in it.
Sometimes the challenge with it, even in my personal example I've had in the past, where it doesn't feel authentic when the engagement happens. So as a friend of mine, she gave a joke this one time, we were chatting, and she's in the middle of the conversation, she stopped. She's like, "You work in NP?" I was like, "NP? Why would you say that?" She said, "You're trying to gas me up." So a lot of times for, the employee, they will be feeling gassed up, somebody gassing them up. Is this real?
It's not genuine.
You understand? Does it come from a real place? And so from a management perspective, you're trying to out fires and just deal with day-to-day of driving and achieving objectives and whatnot. Then you have employee engagement and motivation, and it's just this weird middle ground. And then for it to also feel real, and for what you were saying before, Joanne, it's not a silver bullet. It sounds like it's a couple of things working in tandem together to really achieve this objective. And what I might add is, I think there has to be some element to measure it. How do you measure whether people check out or not? How do you know, okay, so people seem checked out, or I feel people checked out, and then I do this thing for 2 months. Well, they should be good. They should be good for the next year. You understand?
Have a half-an-hour workshop, right?
Yeah, exactly. Check the list, So what would you say to organizations and leaders? What do you recommend that they would do to ensure on a continuum how you check it? Checking out and measure that.
The measurement is important, right? Because they often say you can't manage what you can't measure. But human beings are difficult to measure and quantify. And some people, no matter what you try, will not connect. Other people will engage with the tiniest amount of encouragement and opportunity. So, they're human beings and they have different responses. One of the things that we have done at my company at Regency is we've introduced mental health days. So before COVID, we had 980, and we were one of the few firms outside the energy sector to have that. So what that means is that our staff would work 80 hours in 9 days instead of 10, so they get every other Friday off. That's in addition to their vacation.
Right.
And the 46 public holidays that we have a year, and all the other times that, you know, things are closed in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And it's amazing how that little thing, so I can walk, but I have to walk the talk.
Yes.
Correct, you're an employer.
Right, I'm the employer. That little thing, getting those couple long weekends a month, I don't care what you do. You could stay in bed, you could go and do your banking, you could go to Tobago with your family, whatever. I don't ask. Made such a difference
Really?
in our productivity, our retention. Even people would say, I hear Regency has 980, I could come and work for
Really?
you. Yeah. So with all the other things that we're doing.
Yeah.
And so now we've got hybrid, we've remained and we shall remain with a hybrid.
Yeah.
We've introduced mental health days.
Right.
And again, a small thing, but it's had a massive impact, I believe.
You know,
on our
it's
staff.
all about where you are as a leader, Clara, and that's the
Yeah.
truth about it, because we have so many leaders who unfortunately still have this mentality that, you know, they have to be pretty much seeing the
Have to
person.
see it to
Yeah.
manage it.
Yeah.
Almost wanting to
big stick.
strike the
Yes.
whip,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, and waiting to be able to manage the person on this
Yeah.
day-to-day kind of C management style, you know, and we have moved way past from
But we
that.
haven't.
We have to
We
move
have to,
way
but we
past
haven't.
from
That's the
that.
difficult
But
And the
why-
people
why
that
not?
do have a much better experience. The people that lead in a real sense from their heart, and authentic leadership, that's the point that you were making,
Yeah,
Keith.
yeah.
It makes a difference, and people see it and they connect with it. They connect with when you authentically care about me, and that's all it takes. Let's just
It's-
face
it doesn't have
facts.
to cost
That's
a
all it
fortune.
takes.
But you know, after COVID, okay, so during COVID, the whole world worked from home,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, apart from some jobs, obviously. And then as soon as COVID was finished, or wherever we are now, we had looked at it and said, you know what, I actually, as the company owner, I love working at home.
Yeah.
So I was not going to go back to 5 days a week in office, and therefore I shouldn't ask my staff. Now, there are a couple of jobs that require in office 5 days a week,
Yes.
like my receptionist, for example, okay. But everybody else. And yet Trinidad and Tobago went almost 100% back to in-office
Yeah.
Monday to Friday. Why?
Yeah, yeah.
Why
And
did
declared
we
that
not
it will
learn and
remain
evolve?
so.
Yes.
And then
I just-
expect the best out of
Yes.
people,
Yeah.
Yes.
because we're not drones that flick a switch
Yeah.
back to
So
it.
now I'm back in 3 hours of traffic a
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
What? It was almost like COVID never happened.
And I think that actually, that experience of having had the hybrid work, having had the
Yeah.
remote work, and then asking people to come back almost as though, you know, casually, it just didn't
Yeah.
matter. You know, I think people
It's made the
really,
quiet quitting worse.
It has. That's the point
Yeah.
I was going to make.
Yeah.
It has really made
Yeah.
people, you know, if I can do this without, if I can have a life without necessarily having to
Right.
go to work, let me see what that works out to be
Yeah.
for me. And they're actually thinking
Yeah.
about it. So
They
they're
don't-
not, they haven't actually left the organization,
Yeah, yeah.
but in their mind, they're withdrawing.
mentally,
and
like, and then
mentally
start to
checking
assess
out.
their options.
One foot out
and-
the
Correct.
door. Yeah, they don't care about me.
Yeah.
I showed them I could work from home for 2 years, and yet they want me to spend 5 hours in traffic. I mean, the traffic alone,
Yeah,
and
the
the
tra-
impact it
it's-
has
it's
on
horrible.
mental wellness.
Yes.
I don't have any children in school, but I know Joanne as a parent. That whole drama of,
Yeah.
Yes.
you know, getting up at 4 a.m. as a child to get into school for 6 a.m. I mean, so mummy can get to work for 7.
Yes.
It's insane that
And
we
it's
haven't
really not necessary.
No.
That's,
No.
that's the
that we
worst
haven't
part.
used the pandemic as a catalyst for change in this country. Honestly, I find it quite heartbreaking. And it didn't need to cost a lot of money. It could have been
It doesn't.
carpooling, shift systems, bus lane,
Flex system.
Flexi time.
system, right? How hard is that? If you want people in office, okay, no problem. But you know what? You're going to work 10 till 6, you know, or whatever it is. We just didn't
Think.
use the opportunity to
Yeah.
be creative to what our people needed.
So then it probably speaks to, coming back to that whole point on data and measurement. Are we measuring, or can there be a study that measures what quiet quitting is costing us by way of productivity as a
Yeah.
country? So employees that are not engaged, organizations that are not moving forward and delivering on their mandates and objectives and whatnot. Is there a way to quantify it? Because I
There
think
is.
it
It's
needs
the number
to,
of burning tires. How many burning tires
because
in a
it really
particular
needs
period?
to come down to real tangible terms like,
Yeah.
look, this is what it's
Yeah.
costing us,
Yeah.
you know, and let's put
Well, it's
things in
costing
place.
those salaries, but I think for us, I would suggest that that's where we are now, right? Not 100%, let's say 75% of the companies in this country have got people working just at minimum effort, right, to earn their salaries. So their salaries is what the cost is. If we then said, okay, you know, the people who we are going to motivate and offer incentives and development and so on to go above that, that's going to be your metric, because your baseline is already where we're at, I think. I don't know.
I would say, Keith, to be honest with you, people have the data. They're just not even aware of what metrics they should be looking at.
I guess.
Because let's face facts. We have different categories of employers, right? So, I mean, even if you want to look at the retail shop owner, the cloth store owner, they have the metrics there. How many times do you people show up late? How many times do you people not show up?
Right.
That's the data that you can
and
look
that's
at.
a cost. That's a cost.
That's
yes.
a cost. So you can start with that baseline measurement. Do you? And I hear the stories all the time. You know, people looking at their workers. Somebody's going to come in sick. Somebody's going to call sick. Somebody's going to come in late. And so that data tells you, it gives you a story, it gives you a picture. And you can build on that, right? So, I mean, now with computer technology the way it is, anybody could do SurveyMonkey, right? How hard is it to ask your people, if they're all over the place, a couple of questions? But certainly you can, you know, just ask them,
But it also ties back to what was said earlier about you asking me a question, you know, do I love my job? Do I love my whatever? But are you genuinely going to do anything with the results?
Correct.
Right?
That's
Why you are, I'm going to lie to you, or I'm going to tell you,
Yes.
yes, everything's good, I'm loving it. When really I'm not, because I know historically you have not been genuine with me.
That's the point. Historically, nothing has come out of some of the things that we've done. So you really have to be authentic. It comes back to that. It has to have authentic intent behind it.
And sometimes as leaders, you know, it's easy to blame the staff or blame the employee, right? As opposed to owning it, you know, chest strapping it and say, look, what could I have done differently? How could I have changed it? And I remember growing up, my dad was working for a particular company, and persons, so it's in the energy sector, right? And persons would leave this state-owned entity and, you know, have this bad rapport of, you know, being lazy, unmotivated, get a job at some multinational.
And then work.
And you wouldn't believe it's the same person.
Yeah.
But we say that all the time. Trinis go
They
anywhere
go abroad.
in the world.
And
work 15,
so
20-hour days in the
2 or 3 jobs.
So then what facilitates somebody quiet quitting or functional quitting maybe, and then going somewhere else and be, you know, what are they doing differently? And that's
it's
really
performance management at its heart, right? What does the organization do? And of course, different organizations have different mechanisms, but how do you recognize and reward my effort? So if I am somebody who's been working here, and that one time I did put in the effort, nobody even blinked an eye, or, you know, gave me, I didn't even get a gift card. But I go and I work for BP or Texaco or whatever, and every time I get a $1,000 bonus an hour, I'm going to put in the efforts, right? But there's also, I think, on a deeper level, the culture of those firms is different, because it is very performance driven. Now, they will work you not quite to death, but you're getting a huge salary, but you're also working 23-hour days. Whereas here, 4 o'clock on a Friday, I mean, really is right? I'm really not going to...
4 o'clock, you're pushing it.
And I mean, just recently, this last weekend with the weather and all the drama, it was amazing to me. You know, we closed offices, we closed school because of the rain, but we fetted Burna Boy, thunder and lightning, and we fet in.
And the joke with that is... I have friends, you know, they in the bar the Friday that certain businesses and whatnot didn't open. And they say, well, no, the weather person said going to have rain, so that means not going to have rain. So they're hedging about it.
It was dry as a bone for two. But the point is that our culture is very much geared towards us. We do the things we love because that's what we do as human beings, but we don't love our work. And that's what the journey is. How do I get to the place where I love my work? I love fetted in the rain, Burna Boy, amazing. God, but Monday morning, back in the office.
You know, it's really back to that whole point of doing what you love. If you can connect with your purpose, if you can connect with your passion,
there we go.
I think it's going to speak through in your performance. It's going to be that you show up for work. You show up for work probably ahead of time, not even just on time. It makes a difference when you are connecting with what you really enjoy and what your purpose is.
But I also think I mean, if you're a young person, you may not know what your purpose
That's right.
is
Right.
or your passion.
That's right.
But I also am a believer, and I think I got this really from my dad. You can find purpose and passion in anything.
Yeah.
So if I'm a bartender, I don't want to be a bartender forever. I want to have my own business one day. But while I'm a bartender, I'm
doing the best job I
most
can.
amazing job.
Correct.
So that
That's
the
so true.
customers love me and my cocktails
Work
are
ethic.
world renowned. Right. So that it doesn't even matter whether you're, working KFC or you're working at BP.
Do a good
You
job.
can still do a great job.
Yeah.
And that's the internal, that's the intrinsic motivation, that work ethic, that pride in your work that we have, in many cases, I think we've lost.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't nurture that in young people, in people
Yeah.
entering the workplace.
I think leadership matters.
Yeah, agreed.
And if I could say, where you want to start the work, let leaders look at themselves, start that process. What
I
do you
like
really
that.
want? What do
Yeah.
you want
Leadership
out of this business?
matters.
It
Yeah.
matters.
It matters.
really matters.
Like a lot of time we just kind of gloss over, what it really means, what the effort it takes and whatnot, but it matters, and that authentic leadership also
Yeah.
matters. I think that's a good
But
soundbite.
it's true in all of your aspects
In
of your
every-
life,
every
in your
sphere.
home, in your school. I remember some years ago we did a project with St. Francois Girls through AFET, and the principal at the time, I can't remember her name now, but she was just exceptional.
Yeah.
Energy,
She had a
committed,
vision.
leadership. She turned it into a business magnet school. And all over the place. And I called her Zippy. I can't remember her real name, but I call her Zippy. And we went there half a dozen times to do workshops with the girls, preparing them for World of Work, and they were given green jackets, and they would get internships. That woman single-handedly
Turn the school around.
turned the school around, motivated and inspired those girls from what is not a prestige school, if we're honest, and now it has become a businessman. And that was one person. Now,
Right,
Who
yes.
made a difference.
who made a difference as a
Yeah.
leader. And so I don't think it only is organizations. It's what about our churches? There's a church on every corner here.
Yeah.
What are our church leaders doing to develop work ethic
Yeah.
and help young people find their purpose and their
and
passion?
it's the parent who takes the time
Yeah.
to inculcate the right values in their school children and their
Yeah.
children.
So
in
bringing
their
it
church.
home,
Yeah,
yes.
because that's the future worker, right? So if
Yeah.
you're not going to school every day, if you're showing up late for school every day, that's a future work
Yeah.
pattern that you're setting there. So it matters as a parent.
Yep.
It starts there in the school. That solid work ethic
Yeah.
that you have. Doing your homework matters because that's your preparation for work tomorrow,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
If my mother were to hear you now, she,
Well, I am the product of a teacher, so I can't be
Yeah.
anything other than.
homework was always a little bit of a challenge for me. But missing school, that was
Yeah.
definitely
no.
a no-no. Like
Yeah.
like you have to be like
Yeah.
dying, like
But even when I worked in London, when I first left college, we used to get the tube to work, of course, public transport. If it was snowing, if your leg was broken,
You go
you
in.
still went to work,
Yeah,
You
yeah.
didn't call in sick. Because, well, in those days, you could lose your job,
Yeah.
right? But it was a serious commitment to the job. And somewhere along the line, we've lost that. And I think part of it is that people are protected, their mediocrity is protected
there we go.
by the industrial relations climate,
Yes.
and we're afraid to talk to people about performance.
Yes.
We don't
There
have
we
that
go.
culture of performance management. So, and we celebrate mediocrity. So you've been here 25 years. Here's a medal and a trophy. You didn't do one fart. We love you for 25 years.
Yep.
We celebrate the wrong things, and that I think is something that we also need to, reposition. Celebrating excellence
Yeah.
is what we need to focus on.
But then that to your point, it speaks to having real conversations about it.
does.
Setting the tone,
Yeah.
being very tangible and real with listen, this is what we expect, this is where the bar is set. Not just come to work, occupy a space,
Yeah.
be here for 20, 15 years, whatever. But
That's
we
easier
expect
said than
output. So you
done.
measure
Yeah.
output as opposed to activity.
But you imagine I don't know, HR manager, you've got, 20,000 people in a ministry who have been doing it this way for 50 years.
Yeah.
And you go in and say, okay, we could agree at the top. Lovely, that's what we want. But each of those managers then has to go down
It's
to
a
their
touch
team,
point. Yeah.
and to the person who's interacting with the customer in the post office or the licensing office or where it is. And those experiences generally are
Yeah, so you can't look at the
appalling.
PSs and, the
It's-
ministers, let's say, to
Right.
give that kind of direction, although it starts from there, right? You
Cascade.
certainly have to hit at all of the leadership levels. And I would argue the supervisors matter in that
Absolutely.
regard because they are the ones
They are the
that,
ones in the trenches.
correct, and
Yeah.
they're the touch points really
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
employee base, you know. So you have to start giving them the tools that they need to equip themselves, as well as to help them understand what matters, you know. And then hopefully that's a good start, but certainly you want to embrace systems that will help bring that alive and make
tools
that
and
possible and
technologies,
support it.
yeah,
For
it's-
sure.
And you know, John, like I again, personal experience, I you know, would have, you know, completed my MBA, had worked for a number of years and was ready to go up to supervisory/management level. So I got my first supervisory position.
Yeah.
And in the role, I was responsible for, I think it was like something as much as maybe 10 persons. But I had never had necessarily supervisory training. And then this was an environment where people was, there's a union, the PSA. So
Correct,
they were very ingrained in that culture. Man, I get baptism of fire. They bid me. You know,
Nice,
so
fire and thought.
That happens
yeah.
more often than you would like to know.
and I remember thinking, you know, coming into it, maybe the opportunity should have been where, hey, you're fairly new. Yes, you have the formal academic whatnot, but
Yeah.
hey, go do this supervisory training. Sit with some of the other leaders inside of here who understand the environment,
Yeah.
the culture, and show what methods we can utilize towards
Yeah.
achieving objectives.
You don't want to learn the bad habits. though.
Well, that's the other part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But not knowing anything
Yeah.
and being in there it was rough
And
for
equip
me.
you to be confident to discharge your duties well. You know,
Yep.
that's an important
Yeah.
part. But yeah, unfortunately, that story is quite familiar.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, as a learning and development professional, I hear it all the time. And I would say, yes, I would always argue that training will help. But I would also argue that people can also take an interest in building their own selves, you know, developing yourself. So it goes hand in hand, you know. When it's not happening in your organization, help yourself. Go
Yes.
online, get a book out of your library. There are tools available,
Yeah.
you know, to help yourself.
Yeah.
But certainly I would argue that supporting your supervisors by giving them all the information that they need to do a good
And
job.
coaching.
Yeah, and coaching and
But,
doing
and
the training.
I think in addition to that, John's are absolutely correct. And now there's no excuse for not getting started. I mean, when we were starting out, you had to go to an actual library and read
Yeah.
a book. Now you just
Physical
Google Siri, I want to be a supervisor, and there's 46 webinars you can watch. But
Free.
yeah, for free, yeah. And during COVID, I did all kinds of courses,
Right.
all sorts of different things that I didn't know I needed. But the thing I wanted to say is that I think also we forget in our jobs what it's like to be a customer.
Yeah.
We have every citizen in this country has been a customer, for example, of WASA, of TM Tech, of Digicel, of TSCT, whoever it might be, right? And we all have stories, good and bad. But when we go to work for those firms or the ministries or whoever it is, we suddenly now forget what the customer experience is all about. And to be honest, the only thing that differentiates firms these days is the customer experience, right?
Yeah.
It is, now there's all sorts of phrases and training and all sorts of things to do it. But we all know how it feels to not get good service.
Yes. Yes.
To have to take a day off work to renew your driver's permit.
Yes,
My
it's a
God,
pain.
yeah. I remember when I first came, and somebody said you have to take a book and a sandwich and sit down for the day. But it's like 20 minutes. Why is it a whole day off work? It's getting better, but the minute people cross the aisle, as it were, and are now the other side of the screen or the cashier booth, they forget what it's like to be the customer. And we need to remind ourselves of the customer experience, because that also helps you, I think, for me, have pride in my work. I am passionate about my customers going to other people and saying, hey, Jolan, I just went to Regency, had the most amazing experience. I don't want people going, we went to Regency, and boy, they're miserable, and they 4:45, everybody packing their bags. And, right? So for me, my brand as a professional, as a business owner is important. And it's all about the customer and what we deliver. At the end of the day, manager, supervisor, cashier, it's the customer that counts.
Yeah. You're doing this for a reason. You're serving a cause. You're serving people, so connect with that. And that hopefully will inspire you to do a good job.
So you put yourself in the customer's shoes because you've been on the end of terrible service. You know what it feels like.
Definitely.
All of us have experienced it. So why would you then want to inflict that on others? And if that doesn't motivate you to do a good job as well as your own, and I often tell people, at the end of the day, the customer pays your salary. So, whether you love your job or not, at the moment, it's not what you always dreamed of doing. While you're there, a day, a week, a year, 10 years, do an amazing job.
Yes.
So that when you leave, the company say, God, we're really going to miss you. It was amazing. Or
Yeah.
please don't go with double your salary. But, you know, you leave with that and people recommend you and they want to work with you and they want to hire you.
Just having pride in yourself.
Yeah.
And in what you do.
It's not a new concept, but
No.
it seems quite alien in many ways.
So it's a 360 approach in terms of there's the leadership aspect, there's the
customer
internal aspect, there's even examining the customer, and then come back to that internal, it even looks at your ambition, your pride in yourself,
Yeah.
as you said, the leadership that matters, and even to, I think there's a peer-to-peer
Of
level
course.
on how you engage
Yeah.
with the man in the trenches right
Yeah.
next to you.
Yeah.
So that quiet quitting to really buck the trend of it, it would be looking at that multifaceted approach. But then I think the part that is not spoken about often is sometimes you also have to know when to let go.
Well, I think that's a conversation that we have all too often.
Yeah.
You know, some of us have let go a long time.
Yeah, the
You kinda
older you
just
get, the easier it gets.
Accept the mediocrity, accept that some things mightn't change.
Right, but the let go might mean, hey, this isn't working.
Okay.
And you know, like in the context
Try
of
something differently then.
Yeah, well, no, in terms of to the person, like, hey, this isn't working. Maybe you need to assess your options elsewhere.
Yeah.
Something like that. But then, as you alluded to, in Trinidad and Tobago, the climate.
It's a
that-
tricky.
Yeah.
It is tricky. I mean, I have had conversations in the classroom setting. You know, I have many customers who do training programs with me.
Sure.
And you say something like, if this is not for you, if you don't want to be here, then it's okay to leave. And everybody's like, there's a gasp. And I mean it. And I explain to them when I say you can leave because you have that power within you to find what you think is right for you. And when you do that, you're a better person
Correct.
for it. And the organization will find someone who probably meets the requirements and wants to do that job. It's okay if you want
But
to
the
do something
reality
else.
is, as we both know, most people do what they really love at the weekends.
Yes.
True.
Or they wait until, because I get in my retirement benefit, my pension
Yes,
and everything,
yes.
and I've got kids in school, I've got a mortgage, you know, there's real things you've got to pay for. So I'm going to wait till I'm 60 and then I'm going to retire, get all my lovely benefits, and then I'm going to go off and be a baker or a hat maker
But you know what I
or
say to
football
that?
coach.
Laura, I have said to so many people, listen, I get it. You do have mortgages to pay. You have very real life stuff to do, right? But own...
Burner Boy tickets to buy.
I mean, own your power, right?
Yes.
While you're here, 8 to 4, be a good person.
Yes,
Yes.
agreed.
Do the best that you can do.
Yeah.
Understand that you
example.
can't be bite up with everybody else for the choices that you have made, right? Settle within yourself the fact that I am here for a reason and I want to fulfill this purpose with meaning. And I want to at least be known as somebody who is nice in the workplace and nice to my customers.
Yeah, why are
it
you
makes such a
grumpy
difference
all
when
the
you
time?
own that, when you accept, okay, I'm not going to leave. It's not the dream job. I'm going to just do a great job, as best a job I can do, and stop being bitter with
And I
everybody
think
else.
in most workplaces, there's very few workplaces where there's not something about it that you can latch onto and love.
There must be something.
It might be mentoring new young people in
Correct.
the workplace. It might be
The
taking
co-workers
responsibility
around
for the
you.
Christmas party. That's
Yeah.
your thing.
Yeah, it's right, yeah.
You know, you can find
Yeah.
things to love and be passionate about. Because I think, again, to your point, people want to work, either want to work with you or they don't. And if you're one of those people that everybody's going, oh God, Jolanne is, oh God, please have me in a team with Jolanne.
You check out.
Yeah. Then, you know, that kind of toxicity is very prevalent.
Yeah.
But it affects everybody around you as well,
And it
not
affects
just
you
you.
yourself.
Yeah.
It does affect you. I
But-
mean, that's the stuff that sickness is made of.
True.
Yeah,
True.
yeah. And you know, get those people going, good, it's middle of December, I have 5 more sick days. And then, boss,
Yeah.
I'm feeling sick. You know, I mean, and I've been an employee as myself, so I know what it's
Yeah.
like
Yes,
because,
yes.
you know, that's vacation in all but name. But if you have staff, I mean, I have a couple of employees who, coming down to the end of the year, have to go, but Kevin, you haven't taken any vacation? He said, well, I didn't realise. Right?
Happy to come to work.
I know, yeah. I mean, plus all the holidays,
And
public
that,
holidays and everything, but yeah.
that adds up. That
It does.
you think, because even from on a personal level, I've been one never been keen to take vacation, and like you don't even realize when you're burnt out.
Yeah, well, exactly. When ours
act
is use it or lose
and
it,
then
so-
and then what I found even with my own self, you find where you get to burn out, and then you start to check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you have leadership that cares, like Lara,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
she's coming to her staff and saying, listen, I need you to take some
Yeah, take
vacation
some
because
leave.
you've
Yeah,
been
you
at
need
it
to-
for some
yeah.
time.
But
there are
interest-
leaders that do that.
Yeah.
But
And it
I have a
matters.
small team, to be fair. I mean, I don't have 16,000 people, but you know, before COVID, there was a lot, especially in the US, not Trinidad so much. A lot of people would not take their vacation because they were terrified of being replaced.
Yeah.
Because unemployment was
Oh.
so high, so people burned out, but they wouldn't call in sick. They
Yeah.
wouldn't, because then you're replaceable. And now we're seeing this quiet quitting after COVID, where people, hang on, I actually could have a bit more balance, and I could have a bit more of a life, because I did during the pandemic. And employers failing to recognize that, I think, are really losing out on a massive amount of talent, productivity, contribution, ideas, innovation, all those things. Because we're going, okay, pandemic's finished, back to where we were before.
Back to-
and
yeah.
and that's not cutting it.
And Laura, let's just face facts. The Gen Zs that are coming into the workplace, they're not
yeah.
going to hang around.
They're
you
not
know.
playing with that. Yeah, like
No,
They don't
Yeah.
like it, that's
No.
it.
No.
They will be doing the quick
Yeah.
quitting, not the quiet
Yeah,
quitting.
quick
They will
quitting.
certainly go out.
And it
for
won't be
quick
quiet, it'll be
quitting.
quick and loud. And I mean, you'll be getting resumes, be a 3-line WhatsApp. Here's my resume. You know, it's going to be.
There's
it's
an
a real
episode where
change.
we want to discuss that whole point with the Gen Zs
Oh,
and
yeah.
that whole sense of entitlement and whatnot. So I'll definitely want to invite you all back and,
Yeah,
and
well,
get perspective
that's her children,
on that.
not mine. No, but I think, but they are demanding balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting dilemma for HR professionals to sort of map out all these different generations in the workplace and how they work together or not. But you know, Gen Z's great. I love the ideas. I love the
energy,
commitment to the
yeah.
planet and the environment and causes and all those things. But they still have to be able to answer a telephone.
Yeah.
They still have to be able to speak to a customer properly.
Functional skills.
Yeah, and that's where there's a gap.
Yeah.
They're coming in. I want to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to create the next.
wanna make money
fabulous
fast.
app. Yeah, you know, Drubbles.com, whatever it is. But you haven't replied to my email I sent 4 weeks ago.
Yes, yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? So the base skills that we
Yeah.
learnt
Yeah.
are still very relevant. You just now have to put your energy and creativity
And
and,
find
tech
that middle
skills on
ground.
top.
Yeah.
But yeah, the customers now more demanding, more savvy. They've got more choice. I don't even have to buy stuff in Trinidad anymore. I can buy
Exactly.
it overseas.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
Once I could get Forex, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that's not my
That's a
own
whole other
expertise.
conversation, Keith. A whole other conversation.
But I think that you get a lot of pushback from the younger people in that sense of teaching even functional literacy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been in recruitment a long time and see application forms. Boy,
Yeah.
the
That's
fact that
sad,
we're
though.
teaching English at UE
Yeah.
again as
Yeah.
a base skill is
It's sad.
terrifying.
It
to
is
me.
sad.
And my time at UE, FD 10A was it?
Oh gosh, I've heard
I
stories.
think that had one of the highest failure rates
Yeah.
in UE at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's
Yeah,
an
it's a-
English
it's a
course.
foundational
Oh,
English.
foundational English,
Yeah.
yeah.
For mostly the
Think about-
technical, I suppose the technical
No, even in
disciplines.
SOCI,
Okay.
social sciences, I think the failure rate was as high as 75% at the time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Which
but
is
we are
crazy.
seeing evidence that the functional
Yeah,
literacy
people don't
Really?
read.
isn't where it's
People aren't
supposed to
reading
be.
anymore. Everything's a TikTok and a, video. And then of course we've had 45,000 children who
Yeah.
basically were
out.
disconnected for 2 years
Yes.
during
Yep,
COVID.
they checked
they
out,
checked
during,
out.
during the
Well,
pandemic.
they checked out, but also a lot of them were in homes where there was not the opportunity to connect.
Yes.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
we saw that through Rotary, where the only device that was internet ready was the mother's phone.
Right.
Yeah, and she's
In
at
a-
work.
And she's at work, and she's got 4 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when she comes home, one does an hour on their phone. I mean,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
it's
crazy.
appalling. And we didn't do anything about it. Some NGOs helped, some corporate helped.
Yes.
Yeah. We
But
lost quite a bit
lost
in
tens
that
of
whole
thousands
pandemic.
of
Yeah.
children in this country. So what's going to happen now when they come into the world? Well,
Yeah.
if they can even get jobs, if they can even finish school.
Yeah, it's
What's
going to
being
be.
done?
I think it's going to be really interesting to see that generation as
Yeah.
they go through the stages, whether that little episode in the pandemic really impacted so greatly on their work ethic, and how is that
Yeah.
going to translate into the workplace. As a matter of fact, whether they will get to the workplace,
That's
because
right,
it
yeah.
has real impact in their future in terms of really just being work ready.
Yeah.
You know, so
And
it's,
then
it's
mental
something to think
health,
about.
all the issues that they've had, social disconnections, and the workplace is a social place.
Yes.
It is.
And if you've only ever connected with people online, then moving into a situation even like this to be able to sit and have a conversation with people
But then
is
you
a
would,
challenge.
You would think with, bringing it back to the quiet quitting, like being back in the workplace and able to connect with your peer and sit down and have a conversation versus talking to people in front of a screen, like it should have bred that level of connectivity, that sense of belongingness, that, in the hierarchy of needs and all that. But people, was that overrated?
We could
People
be sitting
just,
next to each other and I'm sending you an email instead of talking to you, right?
And they just checked out still.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable talking to you on email. My sister and my husband do it upstairs, downstairs, WhatsApping. Bring me a Coke. I'm like, he's right there. I can see him. But I think we're more, because that's the way we're trained. So even in the workplace, unless somebody says, come Jolan, come and be on the Christmas party planning committee with me. I want your ideas. And then people do open up and engage, but some people you have to.
It takes a
you have to make the extra effort. I think. I mean, you can't. The technology has allowed us to connect in different ways, but you cannot lose that personal touch. And in leading people, you have to maintain that personal touch. And I guess that's why some of the companies argue, okay, I do want to see, I want you to have some face time with me. And I would argue that the hybrid workplace can do that and can promote that. So. Yeah, we have to look at the balance, but we also have to understand that there are tools available for us to connect with each other. But the personal touch matters.
Yeah.
True, and I've seen, and on that point, I've seen organizations not transform, but go to transition rather to the pod. So rather than you have where one person at the top and leading a million people below, they now have different pods so that it allows that interaction, that personal touch.
Yeah, it's the Al-Qaeda model.
Oh, okay. See, I learned something new.
That's not officially, but no, I mean, I watched a very interesting documentary the other day about terrorist leaders,
right,
as a model of leadership, right? And I mean, obviously what they're doing is terrible and it's, criminal and evil and everything else. But exactly as you said, the way they build their organizations, like these drug cartel leaders and so on, where they have these little cells, they call them, right? So similar to the pod, where one doesn't know what the other's doing, but if one disappears, the business carries on. And in many ways, they are master classes of leadership. They use technology. They engage. Well, it's if you don't sell it, I shoot you. But engagement with a gun, right? Yeah. Their people are incredibly motivated, but massively rewarded. I mean, $1 million a day, cash money, kind of a thing. But it's interesting. It's just how we don't think of them as leaders,
right?
And I'm obviously not recommending that they be role models or anything like that, but the way they run their organization.
Yes, that's...
And it's one of the reasons why police, for example, can never keep up with the bad guys.
Yes.
Because they've got 56 cell phones on the go. We drop one, the next one.
And they function
still using Morse code while the bandits, have got their own satellite. And they move so fast as organizations. They're very agile, which our companies are not. One
of the real success stories, and success in inverted commas, because we're not advocating terrorism, of course, but I think the learning there is that they make it their business to connect with their foot soldiers.
And
to the point where, I mean, we could call it brainwashing, but they really make it a real point of connecting with this person and sharing their story and sharing their ethos and sharing their philosophy. And that's where, I mean, you take somebody with a completely different lifestyle, bring them into, and they just suddenly emerge almost like a different individual. It is that connection. So let's understand what this is about, right? It's about connecting with people.
They also have CSR, because these same, El Chapo and all these guys, whatever the name, give back to their community. They buy, they feed the poor, they buy beds for the old people. The whole village, there's statues of them in the village. Never mind, he's killed 46 million people with his cocaine. The village loves him, and when he died, there was 10 days of mourning, and they carried him through the streets
because of the good that
he's done. So the whole idea, the corporate social responsibility that we think is just the banks and the oil companies, everybody's doing it because that goodwill from the community is also essential.
You see, people,
and your staff buy into that.
People remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And if you take that with you in leadership, you would want people to feel good around you.
Yes.
And if you really want people to feel good around you, you'll do the things that matter to them, and you'll do the right things, and you'll connect with them. So,
and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It's really an investment of time. And
energy, that's the common trend I'm hearing.
As much as anything, and that the point that you made about that willingness as a leader to connect with people and to start. If your next level believe that, then they'll pass it down, and but it's a journey, and I think as Trinidad and Tobago, we have so much work to do to change the culture of work here, that people want to get up in the morning. Well, you know, after 3 hours in traffic, really, even if my company was a great place to work,
it could be defeating.
it could be. I'm just exhausted already, and I haven't even started. You know, so I do think there's a lot of extrinsic things that need to change. But certainly you within yourself as a human being can make a commitment every day to do a really good job and do the best for however long you're there. You know, it may not be forever, but while you're there, you want to leave with a glowing reference.
Yes.
That's what I always tell people. So,
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I think thank you again. We're coming to the end of our discussion on quiet quitting and how it impacts, you know, employees, how it impacts employers, and that whole 360 perspective. Thanks a million, Joanne. Sure. Thanks again, Lara.
You're welcome.
And, you know, we'll see you all on future episodes as we discuss other topics.
Sure.
If you need anybody, what generation are we? We're Gen Y?
We're Gen Y.
We're Gen Y. If you need any old people to talk about the way it was back in the day.
Back in the good old days.
When women had no rights. Let's not. But yeah,
thank you.
happy to be here.
Appreciate it.
It's been great. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.